right, let's go. All right, so as I said, we get our helper class or unit, which will have our attributes and constructors and accessors and mutators. So this class does not have a GUI. So there's no GUI, and the idea is there's no interaction with the user. So this class is, if you remember, like even last week I said, you get it. I want to say the two types of programmers, if you can group them in two groups only. Then you'll get the one that's more RT, and then you'll get the one that's, I want to say, more mathematical and cares more about the running of the program. So that one, the more mathematical one, loves this part. Because in this part, all the methods you create is trying to get the best solution and the best with a less resource intensive and best resource management to do whatever you need to do. So that's these methods we've got here. Here they just think of what is the most efficient way of doing things. And that's what they do here. When we get to our main class or the GUI class, this one focuses on the user. So in this one, you actually have your GUI. And whatever they do here is they try to make it as nice for the user and as easily understandable for the user to know what he should enter, how he should enter it. And then all of that will be sent to this class. So this helper class, as the word said, basically helps the other one to do the job. So here's all our, let's say we had the arrays program and we needed to sort and all that things. So the sorting would all be done here. And even for the display, we'll use a toString. But then it will come here and the GUI will actually just do the display. But I'm going to show that now to you. But that's sort of the idea behind it. So the previous class, this one that we've just done last time, we focused on last time, has got no interaction with the user. If it needed something from the user, generally we'll need parameters there. Parameters is our interaction from the other class, telling this main class, hey, I want to do my job, but I need this, this, and this. And then this class will ask the user for those things with nice components and whatever they need to do to get the values. And then it will send the values to this helper class. And the helper class will do all the calculations, send back the answer, and then this one will display it. So that's sort of the interaction. So this one, I want to say, it's like the face of the company, like your sort of like your marketer and maybe like the principal at school. That's if somebody wants to talk with the school or see how the school is doing, they'll talk to the marketer or the principal. That's the faces, but they don't actually do the teaching. They're like the inner working, the actual teachers on the ground that teaches you maths and science. That's this helper class. So they actually see what's the best way to teach stuff and do all those things. While this one is the interaction with the parents and the community and all that stuff. So that's this one. That's our main class. So here we're going to interact with the client or the user of this program. While that one just does all the maths, sort of. All right, now for this one's main job is actually to create an object. What we've done on this side, I want to say we created like the blueprints. And remember, did we have a method that we said that creates objects for us here? Which method was that again? Yes. So it's a constructor's job to do that. Now, what the constructor does is, I want to say this is like the blueprint of how to create an object. But remember with our constructor, he's got parameters. So he actually needs values to do his job. And that's what we need from here. So in this area now, we actually want to go and create the object that we want to use. So for creating an object, there's like different areas we need. The first thing is, I would say we need to create a link to, I'm going to say variable with inside quotes, but a link to the variable that will be our object name. So generally in your GUI class, you'll also have lots of buttons, and all of the buttons you want to use the object. So that means we need a global variable. So generally on top, I'm just going to say on top, somewhere on top, you can do it in the public area or private area. Sometimes just a little bit lower, there's like that var area, they like to put it there. That's also fine. So in there, you need to give your object name. So let's say whatever you want to call it. So somewhere on the top, you'll give your object a name, and then that will be of type. And then in your program, you'll see, so not the right on top when it says unit whatever, not there, but if you go a little bit down, underneath type, you'll see there's like a name and then equals to class. So that's sort of your class name. So, and you're going to say your object equals to, and generally it's a T, and then the class name. So what this, then we must just remember, you must have your, inside the users, you have to have your unit name. But then what this does, so an important thing to remember, at this stage, the object is not created yet. This is just a pointer. That's going to say, whenever I talk about object T name, it uses this class. That's all it says. This object T name is not an object yet. It's not created yet. It's now just a pointer. It just points to that. It's, I want to say, it's like what you've done here is an area and RAM. You set out. You set this area and RAM. I'm going to put an object here of type this class. I don't have it yet, so but just leave that space open. So your program is just telling Windows, hey, give me this piece of RAM. I'm going to put an object in here. It's not there yet, but just keep this space allocated for me. And we do that on top so that it's a global variable. Let's just put it in here. Because this object you'll most probably use in all the buttons that's going to come afterwards. So this part here, we're just creating that link to it. Then in your button. So now in the button, to actually create the variable, you're going to say again this thing name, object name. But now you'll see you're going to go colon equals. And then again, you're going to go your T class name. And then you go full stop. Now, important to remember, this is the only time you're going to use the class name again. So students get confused, I'm telling you now. So make a point of this. If you've got this, print it out, highlight this part. This is the only place where you're going to have the class name again, and then full stop with the method. So what did we say? Which method creates the object again for us? The constructor. And when we were at the constructor, what did we say is the constructor's name generally? Remember, it was the second word. Yes, that's correct. So our constructor name is create. That's just, I'm to say, a Delphi convention. They say, hey, use create for constructor. So that's why we do it. So in this one, you're going to say the class name dot create because we want to create the object. Yes. You'll see from now on, everywhere now, from now on, all references will be your object name dot and then the method name. So from now on, it's only at this stage. Yes. So in this case, it would be the object name dot toString, object name dot get whatever. So from now on, it will always be this thing full stop, and then the methods. It's only, yes, this will be like all other buttons. They're going to ask you to, all these methods you created, they'll probably have a place for you to use it for something or some reason. And it will always go then object name dot and then the method you need to do it. Get name, get surname, change name, set name, toString, all those things will always now be the object name dot and then the method that you want to use to do the job. So it's only when you create it that it's not. Some people that they learn this like off by heart, and then when you get here they want to say object name dot create. And then what's worse, I must just check again, but I'm very sure Delphi actually doesn't pick it up as an error. And then it's a difficult error. They give you like a memory pointer error. And then it's like difficult to understand because you get this random, it doesn't just tell you it's the wrong thing. Because you referring to an object which doesn't exist. And that's sort of because you're showing to this pointer, but remember at this stage, this is just an empty RAM allocation. So you're pointing to an emptiness and you say create, and then they sort of just tell you, listen, that area in memory is not used yet. But so they don't actually tell you this should be class name. So the error for if you put the object there is not a nice error and it's difficult to fix. So that's why I want to say a lot of other errors guide you sort of a little bit. Hey, data type's wrong, or what's cannot convert it into a string. Then you sort of get an idea of what should happen. Not with this one. So that's why I say sort of focus on when you create it, it will be your class name.create, but from then on, it's always your object dot, and then with whatever's happening. All right, then from here, it now just depends if it's your default constructor or parameterized constructor. So in this case, if we go we had a parameterized constructor up here, name, grade, and array and L. So now you'll have your method. Now in this button, let me just move this down a bit. You first now have, I'm not going to type because we're going to do one together. So, but you'll first have an area here now of getting values into variables. So your first step would be just asking the user for the values, putting it into variables, sort of getting everything you need. Then when you're here, you want to just send those variables across. So at this stage here, you would have created variables that you're using and all that stuff. So they already exist. So in here, you can then literally just put the variable names. So it's like variable 1, variable 2, and variable 3, and variable 4. Now, why I did it like this, I want to just show you that these names that you used here, those names we put in here, and then these names does not need to be the same as this. You can call it V1 here, and it can be name here, and that's perfectly fine. Main thing to remember is the first value will be placed into the first variable, and the second value will be placed into the second variable. And then those of you that can remember from last time, I told you like this is a local variable, and it's just like a temporary storage space. So whichever value you got here, it's not the variable that goes across, it's just the value. So the value, like if you ask the guy what is his name, he said Jan. Jan goes into V1. Then the value of Jan gets transferred to here. So now suddenly Jan is inside name in this program. And then that value of Jan will be placed over to S name. So now Jan is not in the local variable anymore, but he went and he was given to the global variable, which is our attribute. So now S name has also got Jan. So I want to say at this stage in the program, exactly here, exactly at this point, S name has got a value of Jan, name has got a value of Jan, and v1 has got a value of Jan. So all three variables has got the same value. The only trick is, once we reach this end, then name doesn't exist anymore. So after end, only S name and v1 has still got Jan. But then when this button is done, so after this button, v1 also doesn't exist anymore. So at this stage, then only S name has still got the value of Jan. And the other variables were lost now. And that's sort of the trick behind it. So we want to get values, give it to the object so that it can be transferred here, given to global variables. And once they're given to these variables, they sort of stay alive for the remainder of the program. And we can use it wherever else. So then name and v1 doesn't exist anymore in all other buttons. But sname will still have that value. And that's sort of the trick behind it. Did I lose somebody with this explanation? If you got this, then you've got, that's like the crux of OOP. That's sort of like the most important part. Yes, all right, let's go through this again. So main thing, remember, we'll have variables that stays alive for a certain amount of time. So v1, so in this button, this could be the enter button for argument's sake. We're creating a variable v1, and then we ask the user, hey guy, what is your name? And then he types in Jan. So we take that value that he typed in, and we give it to v1. So in this button, v1 has got the value of Jan. But now what we do is we send that value to this object, to this class. So Jan, the value of Jan, is sent over, received inside name, which is also a local variable. So now v1 and name has got the value of Jan. Then we go through this program, we get to this stage where the value of Jan is also given to S name. So after this line of code, at this stage where the stars are, now name has got a value of Jan, S name's got a value of Jan, and v1 has got a value of Jan. All three of them has got the same value. And we carry on with this program, does all those things. When this one ends, so after this end, now suddenly name doesn't exist anymore. Remember, it was a local variable. So name's thrown away. So at this stage, only S name has got a value of Jan, and v1 has got a value of Jan. So, and also when this method is done, because we call the constructor, so as soon as it's done, the active program goes back to the main program, and it will go on and do the next line of code here. And it will finish this button. And then before it goes to a next button, or the user clicks something else again, as soon as this button is done, remember v1 we also created here. So v1 after this end also doesn't exist anymore. So v1 is gone and name is gone. But this S name stays alive for the remainder of the program. So for all other buttons, S name will still have a value of Jan. So it's sort of whatever values we get here, we give to a temporary variable to pass over to another temporary variable to give to a permanent variable so that we can use it throughout the whole program. So you'll see in all following buttons now, if I want the guy's name, I'm going to say my object name dot, and then hopefully we'll have a method, which type of method do we use again to see what the value of an attribute is? Who can remember? Remember our attributes are encapsulated. But now let's say I want to see what this person's name is. I want to see the value of S name. Which methods do we have that does that? Alright, so toString will actually give me all the values. So toString will show me the S name, iGrade, aggregate, and language. So yes, I'll see the name, but I won't only see the name. Don't we have a method that can give us access to an attribute? Yes, 100%. Our accessor. And remember, our accessors always start with the word get. So there'll most probably be an accessor method called get sname. So in all my following buttons, if I say object name dot get sname, then I'll get the value of Jan again. So all your accessor methods gives you access to individual attributes if you've got an accessor. So if your program didn't ask you to create this one, obviously then you can't use it. But if you do have it, then you can just use it. I want to say, generally, we'll work through some past papers and you'll see they're guiding you a lot. Whichever methods you created here is most probably the methods you call here. So they generally don't ask you like something odd, something that you didn't create yet. So they guide you a lot as to which ones to use. And you'll see I just did like a random one for us to also guide us through this. Um, all right, do all of you have sort of an idea? I think I'm going to do this first one with you. So you'll see, I think I sent it on Google Classroom. I sent this one, it's called OOP1, where it's just about, it's sort of like an action figure I was thinking in my mind, but I didn't want to limit it to something, but yeah, maybe we can just call it an action figure. So we've got a method, a helper class, that will have name, gender, and cost. We're going to do all our different things, and we're going to have a main method where we do all these things. So um, is everybody ready for us to jump into this? Or is there a question just before we do this? Yes. So after you created the object, then you will not be using T-class anymore. You won't use a class name anymore. From then on, all the other methods, you'll use the object name dot method. So it's actually it's always your object name dot method with the exception when you create it. Then it's your object name equals to the class name dot create. So that's the trick. Only when you create it. Let's do this. Only when creating a method, a object, you use is when you use your object name equals to the class name dot create. Um, and then all other times you will use object name dot method name. Yeah. So it's always object name dot method name, except when you create it. Then your object name is equal to your class name dot create. Okay. Any other questions here so far? Yes. Yes, they actually disappear. You can't even use them. Like when you create V1 in here, in the next button, if you want to use V1, they don't exist. And I think when we do the program, you will realize, then you'll see, because they are just local variables. So we create them only for that button. And it's the same with these ones in our methods. All your parameters are just local variables. It's like you created them here. So they only exist here. As soon as you end this method, all these ones don't exist anymore. If you write like in the next method here, if you say name, it will actually go red and tell you this method doesn't exist, or this variable doesn't exist, because it's local. But sname does, because it's a global variable. We created it on top. Okay. All right. Where's my mouse now? Hello, can you hear me? Okay. So my mouse just decided to. It's done working now. All right. Trackpad it is. All right. Okay. So let's call this helper class. Let's see. We can call this thing something with. Um, let's call it action. Let's call it action for action man. All right. So I'm going to open Delphi. So this program, when I'm done also, I will load this also to Google Classroom. And then you can use it as a reference. So if you want to work with, and you can, it's okay. If you don't, pay attention, ask all questions you've got, and then I'll give you something to work on. I think at 7 should load the homework for you guys. All right, so we go vCell Forms application. So remember when you start this one, this is our GUI one. So generally for you, for exam purposes, this will already be given. So you don't need to worry about this. You get the GUI, you actually get the other class also already created for you. But maybe when you do your pets and stuff, you might need to create it. So then step 1, open your vCell Forms application. But you'll see all questions always start with the helper class. So what we do is we go file and we go new and you go unit. So now we'll have that. So you'll see you'll have a unit, which on the left hand side you'll see it's like a fire thingy there. And that one. And you'll see unit is sort of just like this. That's all that's there. All right, so we'll have our unit name. So then they tend to change it, but for our purposes now, I'm going to leave it unit 3, just so that we sort of know what's happening. Now in interface, now as I said, this part will be done for you, but in all tests and exams, you'll get this. But yeah, for our purposes, if you want to create your own new one, and you might need to do this for your pet. So this part I'm doing now will just help you for your pet. The rest, you'll never need to do it again. So make a note of this like video or this program when you're done. Use it for your pet and then throw it in. This first section you don't need to worry about. So your first thing you have to do is you have to create the type area. Now in here, your first line would be to create the class or your class name, to give it a name. So I said we're going to call it action. So let's call it T action. Why T? I don't know. Delphi loves T. So all classes always start with a T. Exactly why, I don't know. And then we say in here, this is a T, it's an object class. All right. So now this is our class. That's my mouse back. This is our class name. So remember, when we're going to create our object on the other side, we're going to use this name. This is now our class name. All right, now we're going to have our two areas. So we're going to have our private section and we're going to have a public section. Public section. All right, now here we can create. What did we say again? What generally goes into the private area? Yes. So that's our class name. So in here, all right, yeah, quickly help me with that. So you said the first one is name. So what data type will name be? String. So we can probably call it S name, just because. All right. And you said what's the next one? Gender. So I think with gender, what I thought was to make it a character. So let's call it C gender. Okay. And as I just said now, my idea was for that to be a char. And what was the last one? Cost. Okay, yeah. Cost will be what data type? Variable. Variable cost. All right, so that we do in our private area. You'll see I didn't say generally your exams will say create the following private attributes. If they don't say, it's always private. If they do say and they tell you it's public, then put it by the public area. But if nothing is stated or if they say private, put it private. And the opposite is with methods. So in here is our methods. So it's the opposite with methods. If they don't say do it in public, only if they say create the following private method, then go plonk it up there. But generally public. Right, what was the first method I asked for? I think it's most probably a constructor. Yeah, default constructor. All right. All right. So remember, all methods start with a specific sequence. What's the first word we choose between? Who can remember? Okay. Procedure is correct, and constructor is correct. And what's the other option? Function, yes. Yes, so that's the first word we choose between. What's the second word we choose between? Or what's the second word we're looking at? Yes, it's the name of a method. And the third word, yes, is our parameter. These are brackets. And the fourth word, is our return data type. Return data type. This is only for, is it only procedures or functions? Which one? Yes, because only functions return something. All right, so our first question asked us to create a constructor. So what is our first word? Before create? Yes. Remember, first word, choose one of those, and it is a constructor, so we call it constructor. And then the name of a constructor is called create, which is correct, yes. All right, then this one, they said must be a default constructor. So will it have parameters? No. All right. So let's just go brackets, and then we go semicolon. Okay, after we did this, what do we press again? If I want to go to the code for this now. Yes. So just set here, just so that if we, those people that don't know, ctrl plus shift plus C. That's what we do. So there we go. Control shift C, and then it creates this area for us. You'll see even this create, there's no parameters there, and that's fine. So, and then what did we say? What do we do again in the constructor? Yes, so our attributes needs to get values now. So our S name is 1, he needs to get a value, and our character gender needs to get a value, and our real cost needs to get a value. Now this is a default one, so there's no parameters. So generally they'll say assign default values. Okay, and so let's do that. So for a string, let's just go empty quotes. For a character, we do need to, so generally they might say, maybe they'll say something like, in the question they'll say, most action figures are men. Let's maybe say something like that. Then the default would just be like mail for that one, and then the cost we can maybe just say 0. So you just assign like default values. With a character, you do need to assign a character though. So if it wasn't this, you might have put a space there. But with a string, you can allocate nothing and it's happy with it. A character, generally it's not happy with getting nothing because a character is a character and nothingness is not a character. So then it sort of doesn't like it a lot. All right, and that's our default constructor. Our next one was parameterized constructor, where it said we're going to get a random cost. So with this one, let's say the question's, yes, ask me. No problem. Same name. Because remember, these ones are like our global variables. And what our constructor needs to do is give them values. So that's, I want to say, a crude way of saying it. So that's what it actually does, and to understand it's good. When they ask you, don't say it though. But for you to understand it, our constructor's job is to give values to the attributes. So I'm going to show you now. Let's do this parameterized one, and then we'll see. Parameterized constructor. That's what we're doing now. What we've just done was the default constructor. All right, that's the default constructor parameterized one. All right, so okay, okay. So I'm going to explain that part of yours just now. I think with the next one you'll understand it much better. But yes, so if the question paper asks you what is the purpose of a constructor, then you're going to say something like it's there to create an object of a class, stuff like that. That's what your answer will be. For you to understand, you can just say constructor is there to assign values to the attributes. And that's sort of what it does, like in plain man's words. All right, with our parameterized constructor, let's say the question was get two parameters and assign one random. So the question actually asks us to assign a random price to, you'll see my question that I said here. Just wanted to show you that you get different things. So it's a parameterized constructor, so we're going to receive the name and the gender, but the cost must be a random number. We can just put like anything in there, but we can think about that just now. All right, so, all right, what's my first word again for constructor? Yes. So we go constructor again. What will this one's name be? Yes, this is again create. All right. Now, however, we won't have empty brackets because remember now I said we're going to receive a name and a gender. So remember at this brackets, there's no variables yet, so we have to create local variables. So we have to create a string variable for name. So I'm gonna, let's call it SN just for now, for string name, which is a string. And then we will also have a gender. So character gender of type char. So those two values I'm going to receive. And I'll see, hey, we've got an error here. Overload procedure must be marked with overload directive. So, let's see. Does it not? Oh, it doesn't do it by itself. All right. Overload. Let me just move this one there. All right. So what this means. Oh, so I actually forgot bar notes. We'll see. Hey, so what is this overload? Can you see with my two constructors? I've got a create there and a create there. So I've got two methods with the same name. And that's something we call, just get the right place to put this. I want to put it by our encapsulation. So another word that we've got is method overloading. So method overloading is when you have two or more methods with the same name. So, and can you see the problem? Because in my main program, if I say create, now suddenly my helper method or my helper program class won't know which method to run because both of them's got the same name. But the trick with method overloading, and why they say you must just say overload, what we can do is you can have two methods with the same name. The trick is their parameters must be different. So if in my main program I call create and I give it a string and a character, it will know to use this one. But in my main method, or in my main class, if I call create and just don't send it anything, it will know to use this one. So actually by the parameters, it will identify which one to run. But they just want you to write the word overload, sort of to acknowledge, hey program, I'm creating an overloaded method or method overloading. So I know, just take note, there will be two methods with the same name. And this first one will be overloaded to that one because this one will just have different parameters. Yeah. No, no. So there's no priority. It's sort of just see who's here. All right. So let's say I've got Awande and Daniel. Both of them needs to do something for me. Let me just think of a nice example. So let's say Awande can carry. It's not a nice example, but sort of similar to this. So let's say Awanda can carry 5 chairs, Daniel can carry 2 chairs. If I say, hey guys, between the two of them, please come and carry 5 chairs for me. Who's going to carry the 5 chairs? Awanda. Yes, because Awanda can carry 5, but Daniel can just do 2. However, if I said, come carry 2 chairs for me, then they'll know, okay, Daniel must do it. And that's sort of the same thing. So there's no priority that the one over the other. They're exactly the same. The difference is only in the parameters. So if I ask for a method to be created with no parameters, then this one will do the job. But if I need a method created with a string and a character, then this one will be done. We can actually, with this, you can actually have multiple constructors. We can have a constructor create with only SN and a constructor create with only a character and one with only, so you can have, as long as the parameters are different, you can overload it as many times as you want to, because depending on what you get, you'll know which one to run. And that's sort of the trick. So it's no, yeah, there's no priority. It's just depending on the parameter this program receives, it will know which constructor to call. Yes, two or more. Yes, with the same name. Yes. Yeah, to give our attributes default values. Yes, or basic start values. Yeah. Yes, similar to that. Yes. A more place that you could use this, not so much for you guys, but is let's say we wanted to sort. You remember inside a sort, you needed to create just temp one, just a temporary place to put the one value so that you can swap, and then you take that temporary one and give it back. So let's say we had multiple of these objects. You wanted to just create a temporary one for a space to swap in. Then that's where you'll need a default one. So, but with method overloading, very important, the parameters must differ. You can't have two. And remember, it doesn't look at the names. So if you do this again, even if I call this SN1 and then CG1, this will actually not work. You can't have, because it's still a string with a character. Now they won't know. Remember when we sent it over, like the example I used, VN1, just the value of Jan came over. So it doesn't care what it called it here, because these are just local variables. So they, when we look at this, they literally just look at, there's a string variable and a character variable. So this one, you cannot overload it to also have another string with another character. So that will not work, unfortunately. It must be either different number of parameters or different data types in the parameters. Alright, once we've done that, we Control-Shift-C again in this area. So now here's our two local variables. So remember, these two only exist here. They do not exist on the outside. Like on this side, you'll see if I go here and I say Sn is equal to something, it's going to say Sn doesn't exist, because Sn only exists within this begin and end. So this Sn is a local variable. But now what I can do is I can say my S name, which is my attribute which lasts the whole program, can get the value of this Sn. So now I can give my Sn the value of it to S name. Now I've moved over the temporary to that one. With this one, again, common mistake. It must be your attribute gets the value of the parameter. It's really very common. Some people swap these two around. And if you swap it around, like if I said Sn is equal to S name, you won't get an error, that's fine. But just understand what you're doing. You're taking S name, which doesn't have a value yet. Remember, this method's not called. This method would be called immediately first. And S name, we only created it. So S name might have like a completely random other value. So now we're taking that value and giving it to Sn, which had the value we wanted to keep. So now we're overwriting it. So we're sort of making our parameter empty. So this is the wrong way. Please remember. It's always your attribute gets the value of the parameter. Always. In a constructor. And then our character gender gets the value of my attribute gets the value of my parameter. And then what the question asked us, they wanted us to give a random number to this. Now, with this, you'll see when you just start here, especially for your pet, you'll say, hey, it doesn't work. Why can't I create a random number? So what you must do, you must just go up a bit here by implementation. Because you'll see, because we created this method, there's actually no users. So we have to just go add that for us. So we just add a users here. And what we want to use, so sysutils. Yes, talk to me. Yes, math. So you just need to add math there. Yes, talk to me. Yeah. 100%. Yeah, you can do that also. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Generally, I also do that because sometimes, especially the copy and stuff, you're not too sure where. But like Windows and messages are just for your GUIs. So you won't actually ever use that. Sysutils is good. That's generally where all our character and string functions are in. Variance classes, I'm not sure what's in there actually. Graphics and controls, again, GUI stuff only. Forms is just GUI stuff only. And dialogues is just GUI stuff only. So, yeah. So, for now, for exam and for your pads, you can just copy it all and paste it there. For future reference, it's not ideal because you're importing classes that you're not going to use. So you're sort of using RAM stuff additionally. But for our grade 12 level, that will never hamper you and you won't be penalized for it. So yeah, 100%. You can just go to this class, just copy it all and just paste it there. So that's fine, but yeah, sysutils is sort of the only one you actually need. And then math, obviously, but math won't even be there. You'll need to add it there as well if you wanted it. All right, so once we've got this math up, who can help me? How do I generate? Let's say we want to generate a random number, a random two-digit number. All right, how can I do that? Okay, where? Before it. What must I write here? Sorry, I must, oh, random. Okay, like this. Everybody agree? All right. Okay, let's leave it there and we can see. Okay, I'm just going to save this thing every time I want to click save. So general also with your pad, try to save as frequently as possible. I tried to skip it just because I didn't want to not choose a place, but let's do this. So this is grade 12. Oop, and action. Save, save, and save. All right. Okay, so remember, if you see this double save button not clicked, try to just always click it. It's really, it's going to save you a lot of effort when load shedding needs you somehow, somewhere. All right. Okay, so we've got that now. Now, what's the next question? Was accessors. All right, so I just wanted to do this quickly. So let's create accessors for all of them. So who can remember what is the job of an accessor again? All right. So do you agree an act? Yeah. Yes. So do you agree in this case, what an accessor is going to do? It wants to give our other unit or our other class access to these attributes we've got here. Do you agree? Do you agree our accessor here wants to allow another class to see these things? Okay. So what will be my first word, do you think? When I look at a method, which one would it be? Procedure, constructor, or function? Correct? Why? Sort of. You phrase it a bit funny, but so S name is here. So we want to return S name to that unit. So we want to send it there. And remember, that's the whole idea of a function. If you want to send a value to the other class, you use function. And that's 100% what an accessor wants to do. We want to send our attributes to the other class. So that's why we call it function. So, and then for the S name, what do you think the name of our function will be for this one? Yes, so it's get. So generally get S name. So get, and then generally it's the attribute name. All right, then what's the third piece of a function? Parameter. Do you think a accessor would need a parameter? No, it wouldn't. Why not? Say again, Pavan. Yes, perfect. Remember I told you our global variables. We already know this. So you sort of ask yourself, to send the name, do I need anything else other than the name, gender, and cost? And the answer is no, because I've got the name. So, and I need to send the name, so I don't need anything else. So no parameters. And then the fourth part, yes. Because to send the S name back, we're going to return a string. Let's do all three of them one time. So degree, our next one will also be a function. And it will also be called get, but then got C gender. Also won't need anything. That's good. Yes, talk to me. Okay, so yeah, we don't need it. I like adding them. Just I want to say that's sort of how I was taught, so I just always stuck with it. So if you add them, it doesn't, like you'll see with our default one. It didn't actually break it, but it's empty. So okay, you didn't need to add it. I like to add them just to remember, hey, there needs to be parameters, but in this case, I don't need parameters. So I leave it out. Sort of so you remember that third part. But yes, it's actually, Delphi doesn't mind. Some languages do mind. They want the empty brackets. But Delphi doesn't. So it's fine. Yeah, it was just a personal preference. And then our last one, get our cost. Also no parameters needed. This is, we're returning a real. Alright, and once we've done them, we go Control Shift C, and then we get all three our accessors. Let's start with the name one. So what will my code be inside this thing now? Um, do any of you know, how do I actually send something back? Because this thing, I'm returning a string. How can I, what word do I use? So I'm asking all my EHS people. Oh, Wanley won't know this yet. She's going to learn this now only. Yes, perfect. So, so if you've got a function with this data type, see it as if there was a variable created for you with name result, and result has got this data type. So whatever you give to result will be sent back to the other unit that calls it. So with the get s name, what do I want to send back? Yes, perfect. And that's what we do with all of them. So with my get cost, my yeah, so as soon as you create a function, remember, what does a function do again? It returns a value. So now to return it, you sort of, they needed to create something where you can identify this should be returned. Now Delphi like to use result. So as soon as you created a function, inside the function, see it like you've got a variable called result. Or like this is your teleporter, I want to say. So whatever value you give to result will be sent to whoever calls this method. So with accessors, we generally just send a value, but technically you could have had lots of lines of code here calculating a value and then say a result is equal to and then the final answer. And then that value will be sent back to whoever called the method. So yeah, yes, yeah, that's it. Sent. Yes. Remember the what cotton pot that you're talking about is our parameters. If we're getting something from the other side, it goes into our parameters and we can use it. And if this was a function, then at the end you could have a value called result and then just give it, let's say, like r cost in this case. And then r cost would be sent back to that other one. So whenever you've got a function, because function, you're saying, I'm going to send something back. But how, if you've got lots of lines of code, how will the program know which one to send actually? And that's what the result is. Whatever you give to result will be sent back and it must be of that data type. So like in this program, whatever I give to result will be sent back and it must be of this data type. And then because this is a function, whatever I give to result must be this data type and it will be sent back. Very good. Okay. So just remember, every time you've got a function, you must have a result line. Because, I mean, that's the whole purpose of a function. You want to send something back. So you have to send it a value. All right, then our next one was mutators, I think. Yes. So the next one is mutators. What's the purpose of a mutator again? Yes, to change our attribute. Yes. So now, which word do you think will, for a mutator, will be the first word? That's correct. Why? Yeah, remember, with a mutator, we're just changing the value of s name. That's like last week I told you. If I'm just going to ask you to, Pavan, open the door, you're going to open the door and go sit down. There's nothing else you need to tell me back. And that's sort of, they're going to tell us, change the name to Jan. So we just need to change the name to Jan. There's nothing to be returned. We don't need to tell the main program anything because the main program is telling this unit, hey, unit, change the C gender to F. And it must just do it. There's nothing that needs to be returned. You just change these values. So, yeah. Right, so now we go. So our first word is a procedure. Second word is the name. What will the name for a mutator be? Yeah, set S name. And then what's our third part? It's really open to any of you to answer. And even like Anke, if your mic's broken, you're welcome to just type as well. I love it if you hear like four people say the right thing. That's just fantastic. Yes, we need parameters. So will we need parameters for a set name? All right, so if I ask you to change the name, what are you going to change it to though? Yes. So do you agree? The user is going to tell us what the name should be. So, and that we will receive. So we need to know this class needs to know what to change the name to. So we do need a parameter. So, and that would be for a new name. So I'm also going to call this SN. Okay, let's call it string name new, just because we can. String. So I need to know what the new name is so that I can change it, because they're telling us change the name, but they must tell us what we need to change it to. I know what it was because what it was is inside here. What it was is there. But I want to change it now. So they need to tell us what should the new name be. And then what's the fourth part? Yes, and do we need a return value for this one? Yes, it's not a function. So we're done. There's only three parts. All right, I'm just going to quickly run through the others. So the next one will also be a procedure, and it will be set see gender, and we'll also need to know the new gender. Well, let's say we can maybe say for this one that it just needs to change. Do you agree? Because if it was male and we're changing it, we know to change it to female and vice versa. So let's think how we can do that, just to be interesting. So with this one, just change it to different one. Okay. And then our last one, procedure pro set our R cost. We need to new the new case, so it's R cost new to be real. Okay, you could also see this. All right, so let's start with the name one again. See, if I want to change my S name to this new name, what will be my line of code? Perfect. So my attribute again is equal to my parameter. So same as, remember with our constructor, exactly the same, but it's a single line only because we're only changing the name. And that's all we do. So we do the same with cost. So my R cost gets the value of my R cost new. All right. Now who wants to help me? Let's see what you can remember actually from grade 10 and 11, but mostly grade 10. I want to change the gender. If it was a male, I want to make it female. If it was female, I want to make it male. So we're assuming there's only, so this is still old school program. There's only two genders. We're going to assume we're going to stick with that. I know nowadays it's all blurred, but let's assume there's only two types of genders. So who wants to guide us through this? Okay. Tell me, yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's it. Okay. And what else you want to do then? Everybody happy with this? Any queries? Somebody thinks there's something wrong here. Everybody agree? Should this... All right, so it sort of leads to my question also. Why only a else? Who wants to answer that for us? Why did we just go this route here? Who wants to explain it to us? So I'm happy this is correct, but who wants to just explain? Somebody else then, Pavan. Oh, one leg, can I put you on the spot? Can you think of us? What do you think is happening here? Okay, anybody else? No wonder he's still with us. Yeah, no wonder he's still with us. You are unmuted. Oh, yes, I can hear you. Okay, let's see. Oh, I think winner, somebody sent me a message now. Uh, yes. I don't know. Where does those things go? Is it? Is it? Okay. Oh, there, I see it. All right. There's only two options to choose from. That's why only else is used. Perfect. Yes, I agree, winner. So, do you agree with this one? The gender can either be male or female. There's just two options. So, what Pavan did, he checked. If the gender was male, do you agree we need to make it female? But with the else part, remember the else happens if this is not true. So, do you agree? If it wasn't male, the only option for it to be was it wasn't. The only time else would go is if it was female. And that's why he went else. I've just forgot my... Okay. Technically, you don't need the begin and end, but I'll add it. I know some of you really like the begin and ends. But so in our else part, then we can just say male. So if it was male, we made it female. Otherwise, meaning if it wasn't a male, then the only thing it could have been was female. And then we want to make it male. So that is perfect. If you really wanted to, for some reason, do an else if with female. So otherwise, if it was female, then do this. That's also fine. This is acceptable. You won't lose marks. However, I mean, there was only two options. So we don't technically need to check again, because if it isn't male, it can only be female. And then check for that. All right. Everybody good with this? Perfect. All right, let's look. All right, our next one is a two-string. So we want the name and then a new line and then gender and then a tab and then the cost in currency. So I think before I do these ones, let me just quickly jump to this main program. Let's quickly just go see how the other side looks. So what we've done so far, we've got all our constructors done, two of them. We've got all our accessors done, all our mutators done. For your exams, generally they won't ask you to do all. They'll maybe ask you one or two accessors and maybe one or two mutators. I did want you to see, because some people learn these things off by heart, and they learn a mutator is a procedure with parameter. But like, have a look at this one. You can have a mutator without parameters. So that's also possible. If I asked you to change the cost to another random number, then that also wouldn't have had. Because then we didn't need any information. We would have just generated a random number for it. So don't get stuck on a mutator must have parameter. It does need to have. And also don't get stuck on that an accessor will never have a parameter. There could be an instance where it might need a parameter. But you'll see your questions will really guide you a lot. Let me just show you like some of mine. Let's just think. Let's look at my auxiliary ones. So I've got a sales price. Then what I want you must display the cost with tax added. So if we wanted to do this one, sales price, and I want to show the cost, but I want to add tax. So what do you think? Do you think it would be a procedure or a function? Just do this. All right. I agree with you. Why? Yes. So do you agree? We want to display cost. And remember in this unit or this class, we don't interact with the user. So we don't display here. So we want to send the cost back. And to send something back means it must be a function. All right. Then the name, okay, I made this very cryptic because I just sort of wanted to have some introduction. So, but there I've got like sales price. So you'll see it was bold. So yours, generally they'll say call this method this, and they'll also bold it and everything. So you'll see what to call it. So the next part is, remember, it's the name. So it's our sales price. All right, what's the third piece we need again? Okay. Yes. Now, for this one, do we need to know anything additional to do the job? Okay, let's say this 15% tax is fixed. All right, so do you agree? We don't need parameters because what we've got, we know the tax is 15%. It's a fixed value. And we know the cost of the item is in our cost. So I don't need any parameters because I don't need anything. Let's leave the empty brackets just because, just to make my life easier. And then what's the fourth part of our program? Of a method name, method heading. Anybody still here? First part was function, procedure, or constructor. Second part name. Third part parameters. Fourth part yes. See, it's a function. So what? When I'm returning cost, what data type would that be? Do you think? Yes. And that's it. So let's look at the next one. I'm just doing headings for now. If we do the increase one. So with this question, let's put it here. All right. So with this one, they're telling us, okay, we must also use it for an integer percentage and then increase the cost by that percentage. All right, that's to work out the sales price. Oh, that was sales price. What was this one's name? I call it increase. Oh, there's the name. All right, so what's my first? So with this one, I just want to increase the cost by that percentage. No display or anything, just my cost needs to be increased by that amount. So what is my first word? Fantastic. Why though? Yes, we remember what we're doing now is they're asking us to just change this R cost with that percentage. So perfect, yes. So that's why we're just changing our attribute, but we're not returning anything. So it's a procedure, 100%. Then I told you the name should be increase, so we call it increase. What's our third part? Hopefully parameters. Yes, donkey by donkey. All right. Do we need to know anything additional other than our global variables, our attributes, to do this one's job? Yes, well done. So we're going to need to ask the user. And remember, we don't talk to the user in this one. So that means the other unit needs to ask the user and tell us the integer percentage. So let's call it some like per for percent, and it's an integer. This is a procedure, so will it have a data type at the end? No. Okay, yes, you. Thank you. All right, and that's it. So that's sort of how you'll go. The questions will, I know my questions are very cryptic. So the questions you get in tests and exams, and it will be much more leading. They will actually tell you you will receive an integer percentage. And they'll tell you you must return the cost. And the name should be sales price. So they'll tell you it needs to return something, then you know, hey, function. Or you receive something, then you know, H, that's a parameter. So you can even maybe with a highlighter or underline with your pen, maybe when you get your question paper, if you see you have to write methods and you see the word return, underline it. No, that means function. When it says receive, then underline it. That means parameters. So they will really guide you a lot as to what to do. Because we had initial years, if you're going to work through a lot of past papers and you go to, I want to say, before 2015, roundabout, you'll see a lot where it's a little bit more vague. But then after like 2015, there was a lot of discussion with us at marking where we said, do you really, what are we trying to test? Are we trying to catch out students? Or are we trying to just check if you guys can actually do what is expected? And then the examiners and everybody realized that the idea of the paper wasn't there to see if we can catch you out. The idea of the paper is so that you know if I need to receive something, I need parameters. And if I need to return something, it needs to be a function. So they really try in their papers not to make it as vague as possible to see if they can catch you out. They want to actually make it as clear as possible so that you know exactly what to do because we're just testing if you can do those things. So you don't need to worry about that. As long as you understand when I'm returning something, it will be a function. When I'm receiving something, it will be a parameter. And when it's a function, you need a return data type, and we're going to work with the word result, and so forth, and so forth. As long as you know that, then you sort it. The questions, we will not try and catch you out. during tests or exams. We're going to ask straightforward questions. We might ask questions like this, where I ask you to change gender. But then, because we sort of expect you to understand that you just want to check, but we'll explain it nicely. We'll say you need to change it from, if it was a male, change it to female, and if it was female, change it to male. And then you sort of need to know, okay, that's what I need. So you understand what to do, and then you must just know, okay, well, I've got this if structure. Let's do that way. So yeah, all right. Any questions on this side? Yes. Hmm. Yes. Yes. Well, we're returning the new value. So we're not returning cost. We're sort of going to create a new variable called maybe cost plus tax or something, and we're going to return that value. Yes. So, all right. So with this one, this question, they'll actually tell you the tax is 15. So you don't, in this case, we don't need to ask the user what is the tax because everybody knows tax is 15. So we can just use, so the question will actually tell you, they'll tell you it's like a fixed, they'll say, increase it by a fixed value of 15%. So if it's that, yes, yeah, yeah. So to add on to what Pavan's basically saying, so if they ask you something and they tell you, like if they change this question and they say increase it by 10%, then obviously we won't have this because they said increase it by 10%. So it's a fixed value. So then we don't need to ask the user what is the value because we know the value is 10% and we know what the cost is. So we know both parameters we need to do the calculation. But in this case, when we needed to ask the user what is the percentage, because it could be 5, it could be 20, depending on what the user wants. So then we need to ask him. But with something like tax with VAT, where we know it's a fixed 15, you can just add it. And again, okay, this was a little bit cryptic just because I had the idea of what I had and I just quickly put it down. But in your question paper, they will say, just add the value of 15%, which is VAT, to the cost, and then sort of, hey, okay, we know it's 15. And then, so they'll guide you in the sense that you will know what the value is. You don't need to ask the user for it. And then we just go that route. All right. Anything else still on this class? I want to quickly go to the other one just so that we can see if it works before we do the rest. So these ones, obviously we'll press Ctrl Shift C and then we need to do all the code in it. I don't want to do that right now. I think that could be a nice thing for you guys to try for homework. And then we can build on that for next time. All right, any questions here? All right, seems like all of you are good. Okay, then we go across. So now I'm going to go to my unit 2. All right, so now I'm at my GUI. All right, so generally also tests and exams, GUI would already be created for you. You don't need to worry about adding buttons and all those things. For me, for now, I'm just going to put a button down because I don't want to waste too much time. I'm just going to plonk a button down here. All right, and we're going to do the code in there. All right, so step 1, remember I told you what we need is we want to use our object in all the buttons. There's going to be lots of buttons. Like in this question, you can sort of assume each one of these ones are a button. Creating the object, displaying the object. So we'll have 6 buttons. So what we want to do is we want to use our object in all 6 of them. So, and you agree, because of that, it means we have to create a global variable. So now we go up here and you can choose. You can either do it by the private or public or just here by implementation. It really doesn't matter where you create it. Technically, the department, they really like this bottom area. It doesn't actually make a big difference. All right. So what we'll do, We'll create a variable area here. And then, all right, our first thing, we want to create what we've got in here. We want to use this class which we called t-action. But now remember, this is in this unit. So even though they're here inside the same project, we need to tell this program of ours, hey, we're going to use the stuff in this unit. So we have to go File, we go Use Unit, and you can just now choose Unit 3. You'll see it will be Implementation. We say OK, and it adds this unit, uses Unit 3. Now we can actually use the stuff that's there. And now remember, with this one, we creating a pointer. So I'm specifically saying this because we're just creating a pointer. We're not actually creating an object. Please understand this. Some people get confused. And this part we're doing now, this does not create the object. It just creates a link or a pointer to a specific area in memory that we allocate for future use, if I can say it like that. Did I give it a name, what I wanted to call it? I just said object. Okay, let's call it just object. Generally, they'll say obj something. But let's call ours object. Okay, so if you use object, it goes blue like that. That means a reserved word. Okay, let's call it obj action. Let's call it obj action. Okay, so that's going to be our object name. And then now remember what we do here is the class name. So there's going to be, so you can look on this side. So it's going to be of class T action. It's in there, that line there. So we're going to call this T action. All right, T action. So this created this, let's just say, so this would be the object name colon class name. All right, now we did that. Now generally in this button, you get all the values. So we've got, how many variables? We've got, you just guide me again, we've got a name. So we've got a name, and then okay, we had cost. What was that? The second attribute again? Oh, gender. We had gender, which was the jar. All right, remember, you have to create variables here now because they don't exist here. This is a new class. So now you'll ask the user. So in here, you'll give name a value. You can get it from. I'm just gonna go fixed values. Let's just put Jan in here for now. But obviously, you'll use components or input boxes. All right, but I just want to save time, so I'm just going to give it fixed values. So you can give, you'll get values now for the name. Let's say the cost was 12 just because, and the gender is, let's aim for now. All right, everybody's still with me. You'll shout if I lose you somewhere. All right, so first part, the question will also say extract the values from the components and what. So then you get all that stuff. And then they're going to ask you to instantiate the object. Now, instantiate the object basically means create the object. Create the object. All right, and remember now the notes. So at this stage, this is where we go object name, and then colon equals class name dot and then create. All right, so our object name is obj action, And once we're there, so it's your class name equals to, your object name equals to, and then the class name was T action. T action dot, and then what is the name of our constructor again? Yes. Yes. So see, just in a button. Yes. So I just plonked down one button there. Yes, this is that case. Yes. Yes. Perfect. All right. So I'm just going to comment this one out. So if you wanted to call the default one, that's how it would look. But now we do have values. So I don't actually want to call the default one. So I'm going to call the parameterized one. And you remember with my, parameterized one, we didn't actually have gender. Remember with our parameterized one, just go to it quickly. We only had the name and the gender. Oh, the cost was random. So let's just undo this. So we need a gender, but we didn't need cost. So the question will actually tell you, just get the name and the gender and then create it. So we need to then send it the name and send it the gender. So you can see here, I created local variables, gave it values, and now I'm sending it. So after this end, so when I'm going to the next buttons, when I'm in this button, this NME and gen does not exist. In here, they don't exist. So, but my object action still lives here. And because he's there with those things, I can actually still get that name, that Jan, out from here. And you'll see we're going to display it here now. So, I hate it when I click save. All right. All right, all good. So you extract the values, give it to variables, and then it will be your object name equals to your class name dot create, and then you send it the values as parameters. So the word Jan goes to NME, and then NME with a value of Jan gets sent over to this side. And then this program receives that word Jan and puts it in here. And then we take the word Jan and put it into S name. And then when this one ends, it actually goes back to this stage. And now we're sort of done with this button. Now the user is going to click this button. And now we're just going to display the name quickly. Yes. Yeah, well, Jan gets saved in it. But yes, that's correct. All right, so let's say I want to display something. How do I do that with a pop-up box? How do I display something in a pop-up box? Can anybody remember? Yes. So go show message. Now, let's say I just want to display the name, just to see what's happening. Because remember, I don't have my toString yet. We didn't do that. We ran out of time. So we're not going to do toString yet. But what we do have is do we have a method that can give me the name of this object? Yes. Particularly, we've got this one. Get this name. This can give me the name. So now the object's created and it's got values. So now I can display. So who can guide me? What do you think? How can I call now that get name in here. How can I display my object's name? What can I type in here? Yes, search the object name, search my object action dot, and then the method is get is name. Don't know why. Okay, let's quickly see. Let's play this thing. There's errors. Look, see. Overload. Okay. Too many errors. What do I do here? Unset aside forward. Oh, okay. I'm just gonna. It's the ones I created that I never called. I'm just gonna comment them out quickly. Alright, so we run this. So you have to click button 1. You'll see if you click it like in my program now. Remember, button 1 just created the object. Nothing is displayed, so nothing will happen. But now after I click this, my object's created. If I could see what's happening in RAM, you would see there's a place in RAM where the object's created and the values are placed inside. Now button 2, remember that's the one where I just display the name. So let's do that. And there I can see my yarn. And that's literally the, I want to say, the foundation of OOP. After you created this, now in every other instance, it will always just be object dot and then get name, set name, toString, increase, whatever methods, and we'll just call them. And that is it. Let's see this. Yeah, you see, mine didn't show it because I had errors. But once the errors are fixed, you'll see your control space would actually guide you through all of these steps. All right. Any questions so far? Everybody good?